Have you ever really stopped to think about what makes someone commit a crime? I mean, is it something baked into their DNA from the start, or is it something that happens to them along the way? Well, today we are diving headfirst into the absolutely fascinating world of criminology to figure out what a crime even is, how we've looked at criminals over the years, and what the science actually says. So let's just get right to it. The big one, the question that's really at the heart of this entire field. Are criminals born or are they made? The whole nature versus nurture debate. This single question, honestly, has been the engine driving criminology from the very, very beginning. But hang on. Before we can even start talking about the criminal, we've got to nail down what a crime actually is. What's the line that separates just a bad decision from a full-blown criminal offense in the eyes of the law? Okay, now pay attention to that key phrase right there. An offense against the public. This is so important. It means that even if a crime only has one direct victim, the law sees it as an attack on all of us, on society as a whole. And that's exactly why it's the state, representing everybody, that prosecutes the case, not just the person who was harmed. Think of it like a recipe, right? For something to legally be a crime, you need all four of these ingredients. First up, Actus Reus. That's the guilty act itself. So actually taking a wallet out of someone's pocket. Then you need mens rea, the guilty mind. This means you intended to steal it. If you just picked it up by mistake thinking it was yours, that intent is gone. Third, both of those things, the act and the intent, have to happen at the same time. That's concurrence. And finally, the act has to be officially punishable by law. If you're missing even one of those, legally speaking, you don't have a crime. All right, so we've defined the crime, but what about the person who commits it? Our ideas about what makes someone a criminal haven't stayed the same, not at all. In fact, how we see them has changed dramatically over the centuries. If you go way back, the answer was pretty simple. Criminals were just evil, or maybe possessed by demons. Then, bam, the 19th century rolls around and brings this new scientific twist, the kind of shocking idea of the born criminal. The theory was that some people were just biologically hardwired to be criminals. By the 20th century, though, the pendulum swung way over to the other side, and the focus shifted to society, psychology, and a person's upbringing. And that pretty much brings us to today, where we see the truth as something much, much messier, a complex tangle of both nature and nurture. This quote right here from Cesare Lombroso just perfectly sums up that whole born criminal idea. This guy was a huge deal back then, and he genuinely argued that you could literally spot a criminal just by looking at their physical features, like the size of their jaw or how long their arms were. Now, of course, this has been totally and completely debunked, but it's an incredible look at our first attempts to find a simple scientific answer for some really, really complex human behavior. So if it's not demons, and it's not the size of your jaw, how do we actually study crime in a systematic way? Well, that's where the modern science of criminology comes into play. Now, the one thing you really got to get about criminology is that it's not just like what you see on CSI. It's a social science. It borrows tools from sociology, from psychology, from law to try and answer the biggest questions out there. Why does crime even happen? How can we stop it before it starts? And what's the best way for society to deal with it when it does? This modern way of thinking didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was built piece by piece by these different schools of thought, and each one had its own powerful idea about where crime really comes from. You can basically see three big shifts. First, you had the classical school, which believed crime was just a simple calculation, that criminals are rational people who weigh the pros and cons. Then the positivist school came along and threw that idea out the window, arguing that criminals are actually pushed by forces they can't control, whether it's their own biology or psychology. And then the sociological school zoomed out even further. It didn't point the finger at the individual, but at society itself, at problems like poverty and inequality. All of this history has led us to this really fascinating place in modern criminology. It's a field that has to work with two very different sides of its brain at the same time. One side is pure science, and the other is pure art. Here's how to think about it. The science part is all about the data. The statistics, the crime patterns, running predictive models, it's all that logical left brain stuff. But the art is where it gets applied in the real world. It's the detective's gut feeling during an interview, or a psychologist's empathy when they're talking to someone. I mean, you can have all the data in the world, but without that human intuition, you're never going to solve the whole puzzle. You absolutely have to have both. And let me tell you, this field is anything but static. It's constantly changing. pulling in these incredible new insights from genetics, from neuroscience, and from big data, all to get a better handle on criminal behavior. Which really leaves us with a massive question for the future. As technology like AI gets scarily good at predicting what we're going to do, what happens to the art of criminology? Will all that human intuition and judgment and empathy just get replaced by lines of code? That's a question we're all going to have to figure out.